Again here from South Florida and from Montreal. My name's Stuart Brisgell, and my partner in crime is David Solomon. And every time we get together, sometimes we talk from the same side, sometimes we don't. And if on this topic you feel that you can stand on the other side of the way I feel, and I think that's the way David feels, I want you to chime on in because we're having a very, very hard time. I want to take 10 seconds for you to think about it. We're talking all about voter ID, showing and proving before casting your ballot, and the nonsense that's been brought up just because of Georgia. We'll be back in 10 seconds.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's crazy to think that no matter when you can have a peaceful moment when it comes to politics, there's never any peace. And of course, recently in Georgia, they've tried to enact these new voting laws. And of course, in typical political manner, anything and everything that can be done is got to be completely wrong. And in this case, it's the insistence that in a mail in or an absentee ballot, God forbid someone should be able to show some form of identification to prove that it's them. So before I get into my issue about all of this, Stuart, how do you feel?
Well, like everything I sort of start with, we got to understand some history, right? And I know David just turns his stomach when I
No,
say
no,
that.
no, no, I love it.
You know,
And
you know,
listen, the problem is that people talk. The problem is that the reaction is emotional, not factual. Yet again. So why don't you bring the facts to the table, bro?
so yes, this is really not a factual debate because the people that are on the other side of presenting some sort of ID for voting in the United States is really not one that is really making any sense. So the population that these people that are trying to represent that live in Beverly Hill mansions have security detail and a wallet full of American Express black cards that the taxpayers somehow end up paying for are trying to represent the people that are less privileged and the people that are not being serviced and how it would be very hard for them to present an ID. That part of the population is the most served by social services, has receiving what's called EBT, welfare, food stamps, alternative housing. I mean, they are actually probably the most documented people in the United States because they're accessing every single government program that exists. And the people that aren't accessing the government programs, you know, there are not too many of those that exist because who doesn't want a free check from Uncle Sam? We even have people that aren't even legally in this country that
No,
are getting these government services. And
no, you
you
don't
know,
say.
I don't say. Now, there are people in Canada that think the Americans are so bad because we want to have voter ID in part of the country. Well, fact of the matter is, Canadians are some of the biggest racists of all in voting snobbery. Because if you don't show how you got there, they're not accepting your vote. There are other people that bring up the fact that Ireland, Sweden, and Switzerland doesn't have strict voting laws because they have very strict immigration laws. So where there are no strict immigration laws, you can have very loose election laws. Why are some states harder than other states? Because each state governs its own population the way that it best sees, voted by the people that live there. So, what's required to do in Arizona or Texas or California may not be the same thing required in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, or the good old state of Delaware that actually has pretty restrictive voting laws itself by ballot box. So again, here I am standing in front of you, dying to know someone who could take the other side and tell us that yes, they believe the voting laws with voter ID is not fair. Because
Wow.
I cannot find a single reason why that voter identification in polling places, either by a specific ID, government document, or an electric bill, right? So if you're homeless, you got an EBT card because you're getting money from the government anyways. So I'm willing to accept that. But the left is totally wanting to remove any voter identification, which means I can cast 20 ballots at a ballot box. I can cast 20 ballots in a pre-voting scenario where I mail in ballots for 20 people that may be deceased and having no checks and balances. I don't get it. I'm totally lost. David, I've ranted for 6 minutes. Something I,
You know,
I cannot represent the other side at all.
I'll tell you something. I hear what you're saying, and I got to tell you, when this has come down, and really it prompted going back to excuse me, what I said on Monday about how politics has invaded, sports, and the All-Star Games pulled out of Georgia, and the reason it was pulled out of Georgia, folks, was because of these quote unquote restrictive laws. And again, it's about let's talk about smoke and mirrors versus reality. When the president of the United States says this is Jim Crow 2.0, I mean, you send a hard message. But again, he's not talking about the facts, talking about the goddamn emotions. And the emotions aren't even valid. So
Correct.
let's just call a spade, folks. I don't understand how no one bothered to check into voting patterns by the minorities, by anybody, but they have that information. And if you go and you look at it, you'll see that for the most part, the people that they're saying is going to be the most restrictive, it doesn't apply. So let's talk about what's really happening here. It's not about everybody showing voter ID. That happens already in Georgia. Georgia actually has quite a policy that if you show up to vote, you must show ID, as does 2/3 of the United States. I can't understand the other third, but that's not this conversation.
I put the map up.
But to me, as a Canadian, where I go to the ballot box for municipal, provincial, federal elections, I must show ID. Okay, I must. It's got a proof. They crossed me off the list. They know it's me. I voted once. If I send an absentee ballot, I have to take a picture, a copy of some sort of ID. This is normal, not restrictive. This has been going on for generations in Canada. So for people to say in the United States this is restrictive, you are just creating political nonsense. The minorities you're in question are African Americans, where suddenly you're saying, oh my God, African Americans won't want to show voter ID. Got news for you. They show up at the ballot box more than white voters. So stop making stuff up that doesn't exist.
Well, what about the Latino? What about Latino? What about Asian? What about Indian? I mean, this is a country of many colors. And you know what? It seems that the only color that seems to be oppressed in the United States in the 2021 year is black. And I don't agree. I'm white. So a white guy saying I don't agree is maybe harsh. But I'm sorry, the facts are that this is a biracial, multiracial country with issues that span every color, race, and creed. It doesn't matter. I mean, we've had a black president, we have a black vice president. I mean, it's not the 1960s any longer, and it's not the 18th century.
But look, I don't have to tell you what's happening this week in Minnesota to see how, again, we need to create anger and racial divide. I'm sorry to say this, but for 4 years, all I heard was Donald Trump is creating racial divide. Donald Trump has not been in the White House since January 20th. Okay? It's now 3 months, and I keep hearing about this racial divide. Where is this coming from? Maxine Waters. It's coming from media. It's coming from the president, the vice president. There is no need for this, folks. What we're doing is distorting a reality right now. And the reality is that why? Let's put everything aside for a second. Do you condone cheating? I don't. I know others don't. Okay? We saw Lori Loughlin go to jail because she cheated to get her kid into university. Okay, for those of you who don't know, look that up. This is a hilarious.
That's great. We should actually set up a call about that.
Right. But I'm saying
that'd be fun.
But she cheated. She went to jail. So here is the most important part of democracy, free vote. And you're saying we shouldn't validate one person, one vote. That's what we're hearing. Don't validate one person, one vote. It shouldn't matter. I'm sorry. It does matter. I could care less which political party you're affiliated with. You cannot cheat. Cheating leads to corruption, power. I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to get into what's going on in south of the border. We're looking at you guys and wondering, you guys went from one extreme to a completely other extreme. Okay? But you're continuing to perpetuate a racial divide in Georgia. Companies are
I,
being.
I'm going to make you laugh. I'm going to make you laugh, David. Do you know that the Arab world that is looked about being the most anti-women, anti-black, anti-gray, white, orange, green, gay, LGBTQ, they have a more strict election process where you got to leave your fingerprint. Okay, so if an Arab country that won't let a woman go to a store without a man, won't let a woman drive a car without a man, and has to cover her face from top to bottom, they have to leave a fingerprint. Now, if that's even a woman can actually vote in that country, but nevertheless, several developing nations have instituted voter ID laws. We are the leading free world, and we don't want to have any control.
So let me tell you something. Let me give you something, and this is folks, you can check me out on the Washington Post, okay? The crazy thing is that, it replaces the signature. The whole idea is that you're supposed to sign your mail-in ballot, okay? And they're saying it's just to verify your ID. So they're saying, forget the signature, put a copy of your ID. What are we talking about here, people? Out of 1.1 million ballots, okay, only 3,200 were rejected for signature issues. Okay? Like, really? We're making a mountain out of molehills. Yeah, you're going to talk to me about, we can't give water in lines. BS, that's been eliminated. Stop bitching about that. Regulation of drop boxes. Yeah, I've heard that. Read again the regulations. There are more opportunities. And before everybody freaks out that we're not reading this, the truth of the matter is, as soon as you label it Jim Crow 2.0,
Oh
you,
boy.
you just created a whole divide.
Why in the world? Why in the world do these politicians want to incite more rioting, more looting, and more animosity that doesn't even exist? This Maxine Waters. Let's talk about impeach. She
No,
should be cited
I'm
by.
sorry. She should be thrown in jail because
Yeah,
you know what? To
yep,
stand up and
100%.
tell everybody that if the verdict doesn't come through, we're going to burn down Minneapolis.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's treason at its highest level. And what you're doing here with voter ID is you're ensuring fairness. That's all it is. I mean, I'm sorry to tell you, if you have to play games to get votes, maybe you should take a look at the mirror and wonder about your policies. Is it about winning elections and controlling power by lying, cheating, and manipulating a system? I mean, forget the fact that people don't understand about filling up the judicial system, adding 4 more justices, changing the electoral college. This is all we are hearing from your newly elected officials. Okay, and here when a government is saying, "Whoa, we want to slow down," we as a state, we've looked at our state, we've recognized the problem, which we in Canada don't understand. You have a federal bloody election, and you have 50 different ways of handling voting. To me, it's chaotic. But that's your system. And if that's your system, then you have to respect when a government in power is saying, you know what, guys? We have a problem. And it's a problem related to our relationship.
Yep.
I think it's hilarious what you're showing on screen. We are the United States has become more and more of a comedy act for the rest of the world. Russia is thinking you're like, hi, great, super. Don't do it. Cheat. Great. You spent 4 years trying to impeach Trump about him and the Russian interference in the election, but you don't mind cheating. I mean, guys,
Listen, David, it's 14 and a half, and I just got to jump in. The point is that I was desperate to find someone who would either send me a comment or want to come in this conversation and try and take the position that voter ID, voter registration is a racial and bad thing, and why. And no one has bothered to take that call. So I'm going to assume for all the viewers out there, if you can find someone that can show me why it's discriminatory, I'd love to bring you on. You know what time it is?
You know what, Stuart? I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to wrap this up with my last comment. You know something? It's all about agree with me, but I don't have to give you fact. This is where we're at today. We've talked about this in this rant too many times. And you know what? I want to have a wonderful quality debate with anybody who's willing to tell me the facts, not supposition, support it with fact, statistics, and I will listen. Until then, we won't. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the clock. It's 15 minutes after. Guess what? On Friday, we want to put some levity to this. We want to have some fun. And I want to thank those that have shared with it. You know, COVID has brought on some weird stuff, and the CDC this week said, oh, by the way, we're changing again some of the things that you have to do to protect yourself. Thank you to the Americans who are better vaccinated than in Canada for this, of course. But certainly, they're talking about changing the way we are handling ourselves during the COVID period. So we want to know, when you look back in the last 13 months, what is the wacky doodle thing that you've done during
Wackadoodle. Wackadoodle. You see, that's the part that I'm excited for. And yes, I've seen some really, really funny things. And, I would love people to send us pictures of the dumbest and silliest shit you did, because
Wow.
it's going to be Fun Friday. And,
Don't-
and, and we have a constant watcher named Risa Rowe. And Risa Rowe was challenged to get in her car and drive to Florida. Risa, blame Canada. Take
No.
the drive. Come to Florida. It's much better here. I can freely go where I want, and I can freely eat a piece of pizza at my good friend Timo John's restaurant anytime that I want. It is 16 minutes. We're done.
Let us talk about that on Friday. So, folks, we won't tell your name if you don't want to, but I love some of the people, what they've sent me. I think it's hilarious. Share with us your favorite stories. Guys, the rant at therantnetwork.com. That's our website. Share it with everybody. Therantnetwork.com. Facebook, Rant Network. Please go ahead.
Hey,
Share
YouTube
YouTube channel. That's new for us, guys. And guys, there are changes coming to us. You're going to see more and more of our faces in May. You won't believe it. But we're going to be coming to you with a whole slew of new approaches on how to watch our crazy events, and for you to send us the information. We love you. We thank you for your support. We look forward to seeing you on Friday.